Well, look who we have here. Welcome to the Evil Mojo Design a Champion panel. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be doing a quick rundown of what we're doing today, and then we'll hop right into it. But first, let's do some introductions. I am Kevin. My name is Kevin. I go by Nico. I'm one of the game designers for Evil Mojo. I also have joining me Ben. Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ben. I'm a gameplay programmer on Paladins. Worked on a few champs, worked on a few not champ stuff. Tambo, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. What's up, everybody? I'm Tambo. You may know me by my moniker Strixus. I am the lead QA analyst on at Evil Mojo. I help find bugs. Work with the team that helps find bugs. We're pretty sweet. I enjoy it a lot. I'll pass.
And then we also have joining us to Jeff.
Hello. I hope I'm not still muted. I'm one of the concept artists. I'll take it by that smile that I'm coming through. One of the concept
What's
artists.
That, Jeff? Can't hear you. Yeah.
Damn it. Don't mess with me. You know this is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the concept artists. So we mostly do skins.
So now that introductions are done, we in the past have done this where, so Jeff is doing something very, very cool. He is going to be live concepting the champion that we're going to be making together today. Unfortunately, due to some technical constraints, we're not able to actually show the concept as it's being drawn, but we will, I think, probably have time at the end of the panel to slap it up on stream, and then we will also be sending out a link to the document that we're using for this panel so that everyone who wants to see it for posterity will be able to do so. So the general gist is we have 4 panelists. We're each going to be talking about kind of different aspects that go into designing a champion and then kind of seeing that champion through to creation as we are filling out live a document that will essentially be all the kind of basic info that we would include in champion design. Also, huge shout out to Miriam, who will be helping moderate the panel today via Twitch chat. We'll probably be running a bunch of polls for the bigger ticket items. But we can go ahead and dive right into showing off the empty doc, and then we can get started. Now, as we start looking at this document, Jeff, why don't we talk a little bit about like kind of the beginning steps of a champion, like especially from concept.
Oh man, I didn't know you were going to ask questions.
All right, no, you know what? We'll give you like 30 seconds, like it's a prep. Okay, all right, then go, Jeff, be free.
I guess it usually starts. I don't know how transparent we want to be, but at like the marketing level, we get numbers back from what has worked in the past or things that people think will do well, and so when we're designing skins, at least that's how it works. With a champ, it can kind of come from you guys, the design folks, or from Rafe, the art director. Anywhere. They can come from anywhere.
Excellent. So as we start out, coming up with ideas for, what do we want in this champion? Is there a specific art direction we want? Is there a specific gameplay direction we want? We kind of toss it between, this is in parallel between a bunch of different departments. We have art, we have on the tech side, is this even feasible? What are some fun ideas we can come up with? So you all, our Twitch audience, will be our guinea pigs, our source for information. And as we run polls, as we source info or ideas from you all, we will take some time while the poll is running to talk about different aspects from programming side, from QA side, as we run through that. So, Quacky, I hear you. I don't know if we're going to make a duck, but we'll see. So let's start off with, we'll leave name, definitely not FrogChamp. We'll leave name for a little bit later. Let's start with some of the background info, and then actually, let's backpedal very briefly. I do want to point out that all that you see here is not representative of the actual literal process of designing a champion. It's a little bit of a gamification, if you will. This kit that we're going to make together, including the numbers, has not been iterated on or balanced or play tested. So just keep that in mind before you're like, okay, please nerf to OP. So let's jump into it. What kind of race are we thinking? And I'm gonna, so go ahead and say like what you think might be cool. We're gonna, if anyone else on the panel has anything that they see in Twitch chat that they think kind of jumps out of them, we can then create a poll of maybe the top 4 options. I'll toss a couple down here before we run the poll. I will put Duck in there just for you, Quacky. And then we will run a quick poll between maybe 4 or 5 options, and I'll toss it to one of the other panelists to talk about that, or to talk about a little bit of the champ dead before we run with that. So I see a lot of Duck. Okay, I do see a lot of Duck, so we'll keep that.
I've seen a couple of Orc. I like Orc.
I go with a Duck.
Since a lot of them maybe.
Orc? Yeah, and Jeff, if you want, if there are any where you're like, oh, please, God, no. Like, can we not draw, insert something here, then we'll do that.
My preference is the dumber the better. So
the dumber the better. So
okay,
please,
so
Twitch chat, lend yourself to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I see crab, I see shark, I see whale. That might be a little bit tough.
Imagine creating a whale character that's riding the whale mount. That would be
whale champ.
Yeah,
love it.
That would be a lot.
I'll toss skeleton on there. I'll toss dwarf on there.
The crocodile was really funny.
Crocodile. All right, let's do that.
What? Oh.
All right, so that's gonna close out our options list. So let's go ahead and run a poll, Miriam, if you're able to, between duck, orc, skeleton, dwarf, and crocodile. I think we can do up to 5 options, right? Or am I a Twitch noob?
I was pulling for whale.
You're pulling for whale. You want to draw a whale?
I did the whale mount, so I want to draw.
You did do the whale mount. I love the whale mount. It's so good.
I love the whale
It's
mount.
so good.
We've used the whale mount as some placeholder art for several other things in the game because it's so good.
There's actually an ability. So before new champions are essentially in and made, you essentially toss whatever you can on any given ability. So it might be like a total placeholder mesh. We actually, for an upcoming champion, have used the whale mount as a deployable. So you are literally tossing a giant whale out onto the floor. Are we able to? Are we able to see the poll? Am I not? Or am I just?
Do we have it up? I actually don't see if we have one right now.
Can we run polls on this channel?
Can't make a poll. Oh no.
Cannot make a poll. All right. I guess we're pulling the classic. The loudest. No, go. What's that, Tambo?
I'm saying I might be able to make one. Hold on, let me see if I can. I don't know if we can also ask prediction.
All right, so
if there's a way to.
What we can probably do, is we'll do the loudest in chat for this one, and then can we Tambo, if you want to do you want to make like straw polls or something, and we can drop the link in the chat.
Ooh, straw poll. Yeah, hold on 1 second. I
see a lot of duck.
If I can. Hold on 1 second. Duck. I can get one for this one. Crocodile.
I see a lot of duck. I see some crocs. Crocs are making a comeback. Not too many orcs. Can Nico be the champ? I love you.
Do we allow multiple poll answers on straw poll? Probably not.
No, I think it's just the one poll answer.
Nico, you are a champ. Hope you know that.
Oh, shucks. You're going to make me blush. The real champion is the friends we made along the way. The real if I really... Okay, let me revise that. If I really wanted to be, that guy, I could say the real champion is all of you. The straw poll's in the chat. Let's go! We'll set a timer for approximately between 0 and 2 minutes, inclusive. And then we'll go ahead and pick our answer. So, for the next 2 minutes, Ben, why don't you run us
We actually
through?
got a poll up in chat. So.
Oh, do we? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's actually a Twitch poll. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, what
That's
were
a
you
lot
saying,
of
John?
duck.
There's a lot.
Well, I was going to say, while the poll's running, do you want to run us through kind of the, if somebody said to you, hey, we're going to make a new champ, you're on Prague side. What's kind of the first steps for that kind of thing?
I guess the very first step would be usually we have a joint buy-in meeting with design, QA, and programming, and that sort of is what's the feasibility of this. So identify, this could be tricky. We could do this very very easily, or considered this thing is like this other thing. But then I think after that, right, once design has their dream wish list, usually we say which of these need the most, I guess, high priority from a playtest and balance standpoint. Because obviously, as programmers, we don't finish everything at once. We're doing the abilities sometimes in tandem, but we get things done, right, bit by bit. And we want to prioritize the things that design wants. Either thinks is, Kevin, you can be the expert on this, but right, usually programming prioritizes things that design says is core to the feel of the champ, or is most may require balancing or pivots. I think that's my answer for the start of the programming.
Makes sense. Yeah, and it's about what's the wish list, and then how do we prioritize what we think is most impactful earliest for the most part. So it looks like our poll did close out with duck. We are going to be running another poll for roll. Looks like it is up. The poll for roll is up. Support is leading by a significant margin, but you have 4 options, of course: frontline, support, damage, and flank. Imagine how you would like your duck to perform in game. As we do that, Tambo, I'm going to throw it to you. If you want to talk about, so as we start the champion development, at what points and how do you start interacting with the earliest stages and what you imagine the later stages of the champ might be?
So QA is, just based on how design
it could be
goes out.
Yeah, it could be from QA perspective, or it could even just be from you getting kind of an early insight into what the champion and who they might be within the game or within the gameplay.
Okay, cool. So from the QA perspective, at least, we QA joins we get to participate in the brainstorming phase, helping kind of throw around ideas, and then we kind of let things we kind of sit on our laurels for a little bit, and then pop back in when we've got a near final concept. We get to kind of join in during the segments where we're kind of finalizing the kit and finalizing just a lot of the major aspects. We are not necessarily the only detractors and naysayers, but we get to be hey, this is going to be a pain point if you try to design like this because of X and Y reason. For example, with Yagurath, we were okay, a character that can't move is really difficult to try to concept in our game, and the idea of full stance swapping with model animations and everything was something that we were okay, we really need to take it into account that this character is going to be extremely complex, and we're going to need to run through 2 dozen different scenarios where something could mess with the stance swap mechanic, the form change mechanic of Yagurath. And so that's where we pop back in, and then we work on creating test plan documents and kind of brainstorm ways that things could break, and kind of work from there. There's a little more to talk about QA. We definitely get very involved, but I see that our poll is ended, so I'll throw it back to Nico for now.
Yeah, what do you mean we don't want a champion with 4 stances that steals abilities from other champions and also resurrects from the dead? It's cool.
Awesome. We've done all of them. We've done all of those.
I know.
It's just not on the same character, please.
All of it together at once. All right, so our poll did win with a vast 61% majority for your support duck. What a foul outcome, am I right? We are moving on.
If the support duck is bad at healing, would that make it a quack? That's mine.
That's
Why
right.
am I in this call?
Oh, that's good.
This supports a quack. Can't even heal. All right, so the duck's going to waddle. Anyway, all right, so we are going to do the same thing we did with the race. We are going to toss out, or I'm going to collate, nice big word. We're going to collate some ideas from Twitch chat. What kind of weapon do we want? And we will run another poll after we get some good ideas.
May I interrupt you?
You absolutely may interrupt.
Why, thank you. So polite. Is this a female or a male duck, or somewhere?
That is a great question. Let's do that real quick. Can we get a quick poll, maybe 30 seconds to a minute of male, female, or non-gender specific? And as we do that, maybe Jeff, you can talk a little bit about, so are there specific things that you want from a specific team before you start concepting? Do you kind of do like a base level, what's going to happen, and then iterate on that? Like, what are your first thoughts on doing that kind of thing?
The more information is usually beneficial to us, starting with the design of the kit, because I personally like to incorporate like shape language of what they should be doing into the designs. So understanding what their kit is helps. If there's any lore, that helps. But then I guess on the flip side, like if you just want something completely random, like just let us run wild with it, which is probably the opposite of this exercise that we're doing now. But so the more information you can hand me, the better. Otherwise, I'm just going to take it and run with it, and you're going to get some weird cactus duck.
I think we're down for some weird cactus duck. Are there ever times where you're just like, I need more info, or can you just kind of run with it, let your mind go wild?
Oh no, I like just running wild with things. I find that if there is information and that isn't given to us, and then we make a drawing, because we'll just fill in the blanks wherever we can, then that's probably where a lot of backtracking will happen. Like, I'm sorry, this wasn't supposed to be a duck; it was supposed to be a goose. But
right.
Like that. So,
I know we said duck, but can we actually hard pivot?
Yes.
So it looks like
That
our
changed.
poll.
Marketing said no ducks.
Yeah. Marketing vetoed. It's something else now. Our poll ended with male, so we have a male duck support. We will be moving on real quick to our weapon. What ideas do you have from Twitch chat? I see feathers, eggs, classics, a bazooka, also a classic.
Let me support you with explosions.
I see slingshot. So we actually did like a staff sling type deal for the satyr that we did 2 years ago. So I'm gonna. That's totally a plug. I can get you the link to that if you want. I have the links for all of these. And by the way, let me take that opportunity to say that we will send out a link to this. I think I said this before, but we will send out a link to this doc with everything on it and Jeff's amazing cactus duck concept after the fact, so you can go back and look at it. Egg launcher. So we got feathers, we got bazooka, we got eggs and egg launchers and all that good stuff. Let's get two more. I see magic. Could be a magic support duck.
Yeah, I see a lot
and
of
then
bubbles.
I see bubbles.
Oh.
All right, let's run with 5.
Dude, a bubble wand is gonna be hysterical. I'm personally
all right. Jeff.
Bubbles. Yeah, I buy
Jeff's pulling for bubble wand. So let's get a poll going with feathers, eggs, bazooka, magic, and bubbles. Thank you all for your contributions. Yep, sorry, Tambo, go ahead.
You may need to scroll down very slightly to show all 5 of the weapons. I think on screen it's only showing the top 4.
Yes. Mr. Tyler, if we could, yeah. One more scroll, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. I will. Let me get that.
Nice.
Yeah, so I go and enter, sorry.
You're good. All right. So as we are running this poll, why don't we hear again from Ben? So, Ben, if I told you,
Yep.
looks like Bubbles has a fair lead, 120 vote lead. So if I told you, I want Bubbles as an in-hand weapon. What's the first thing that goes through your head? Like how are you thinking? Let's do Bubbles.
The first thing I think I would ask is what type of, right? There's a lot of different ways we can do bubbles, right? It could be similar to like Torvald's in hand, right? A spherical projectile that looks like a bubble. It could be, maybe we want a sort of stream of bubbles. It's more of a, I don't know, some sort of laser or cone type attack. Right, assuming in hand it could be projectile, but maybe we're switching up the in hand. So I think that's the right. If all I heard was bubble, I would ask for what kind of bubble is this like? What does it? Is it just constant bubbles? Is it some characters have chain attacks, right? Left bubble,
yes,
right bubble,
the chain bubble attack.
Yeah. Yes. So I think most of, especially the beginning of programming, is just establishing exactly what design's vision is for it. Not to say that design does not rule with an iron fist. They ask others for input. We change and pivot based on playtests, but as programming, right, I think it's always important what is being asked of you.
Makes sense, and I will take this opportunity as our poll ends with a 52% bubble vote to speak on behalf of design. So if part of the process for us is, do we have an archetype or a feeling, like a game feeling, player fantasy that we haven't hit with a specific champion? Do we want to make a really cool ninja? Do we want to make a big gun? Do we want to make many very mobile, or this champ's gonna fly, or this type of weapon hasn't been done yet? And we kind of mold a little bit of our ideation around that kind of thing. So if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Kevin, I know normally you come up with some of this stuff, but you're gonna make a duck. It's gonna be a duck support, and they have to have bubbles as an in-hand weapon." My first thought would be kind of along the same lines, Ben. Like, what do these bubbles look like? Do I have like a one of those blowing bubble wands, and as I swipe it, it sends out like a series of 3 bubbles in a chain? Is it going to be hit scan bubbles? Are these homing bubbles? Do we interact with the bubbles with other abilities? Is the bubbles like a duck theme? You know what I mean? So I am going to go with. I know there are a lot of ideas in chat, and I like a lot of these ideas in chat for how the bubbles work, right? I think it would be cool. Jeff, how do you feel about a wand of some sort? Like a blowing bubbles.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how does the rest of the panel feel about potentially a bubble wand that is like a swipe sideways to send out a chain of multiple bubbles in kind of a row or an arc? How do we feel about that, Ben? Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Tambo, thoughts?
The idea of it seems really cool. It feels very evocative of childhood, I guess. The idea of that. Although I don't know if the physics work out that way. We've got some magic physics going on to swipe sideways and have the bubbles go forwards.
It's totally how it works. Totally how it works.
Yeah. I'll suspend disbelief for this.
The nice thing about, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Oh no, he can use his wings to blow it, or he's got that bill, the duck bill. It looks very blowy. So I imagine he's either blowing them or flapping at them. But yeah,
okay, so
in my drawing, there's a giant bubble wand that looks like a magical girl thing. It's way oversized.
Yes.
Okay. Very large wand.
Yes.
We have multiple. Okay, so the cool thing about this champ, going back to the whole, hey, this is not technically how the champ thing would work. There are constraints when we make a champion for the game. There are certain things that we need to keep in mind about the engine, about geometry on maps, if you ever want to do something that interacts with geometry, about stuff like that. But for our duck champ, we can suspend all of that. So we will go wild kind of with this kind of thing. So you know, what's going through my head right now is we have the support duck, we have bubbles. I think bubbles and kind of bird things can't, especially that kind of thematic, you know, this is your childhood dream come to life, but also it's going to brutally murder you with these bubbles, is something that we can pull through the entire champion, right? So I'm as we talk about other stuff, I'm starting to think about, okay, do we want these bubbles to bounce off walls? Do we want these bubbles to combine into a larger bubble? Do we put the soap suds debuff on enemies when they're hit by the bubbles? That kind of thing. So as we run, and health is kind of, we don't necessarily need, there's generally a range, especially for per roll basis for health. I see some really chunky health values being thrown out here. I saw one 6,000 HP duck, which I think that is a duck you do not want to see waddling towards you, I think, on the other team. But we're going to go ahead and run a poll, I think, of 5 values, 1,900 to 2,400 by 100 increments. Let's do that. So 1,900, 2,000, 2,100, 2,200, 2,300. Is that 6 values? 2,400. We can stop at 2,300. It's fine. So typically, you know, what's going through my head is what role are we playing, right? Typically, front lines have either more survivability mechanics that are not just raw health, or we have more HP. Supports typically are not the squishiest, but are also not super, super, super healthy. And this is something also, this and movement speed and all that stuff are things that will iterate based on playtest. If this duck is waddling way too quickly, we'll tone it down. If he is just slow and has no mobility, which would, you know, potentially be a player expectation that's not quite in line with reality. Like with this duck, it's a duck, it's a bird, it should be really quick. Then we can knock it up or have different mobility values, that kind of thing. So we do have a poll running for Mr. Duckman Health. This will be a quick one. Tambo, how you feeling right now? What do you think could be the direction for, like, do you think there's a specific theme that's going to work here? Maybe a player fantasy?
So the idea of ducks, like, so when I first think of ducks, I think of a very like serene duck on a lake. Bubbles kind of play into that fantasy as like kind of a calm entity. If we were geese, it would be a much more hectic, much more like rambunctious, ridiculous character. But for me, duck kind of correlates with like this theme of like serenity. But I could also so like in theory, one direction we could take with this kit is very much like a support that is a very buffing oriented support, just provides different buffs for their team. However, the idea of bubbles in general, I think gives me like a sense of like mischievousness, and so maybe there's like some really fun like you mentioned like soap sudsy things where you could do like slip and slide, like apply a debuff to an enemy where their movement is very slippery, kind of like in Smite the like the disorient effect, the Bacchus drunk effect, something like that.
I mean that makes sense to me. And that actually kind of touches on something that we as a group do when we're iterating on champions too. Design might come up with 3 or 4 different kit pitches with different themes. So this one is the debuff, the sudsy debuff themed kit pitch. This is the bubble champ kit, and we'll get feedback from internally, and we'll get feedback from other designers, and say essentially, hey, what do we think are the strong points here? Is there one that we think might be most valuable? So next up, we have affiliation. So that typically is your magistrate, resistance, abyss, darkness, stuff like that. So the obvious choice here is nature. Best friends with Grover, right? Like hangs out in Grover's branches or whatever. But I think we have other options. We'll just toss some quick ones out here since we want to move on to the actual kit as well. So I'm going to toss nature in there. Nature. Let's get three other options real quick. So I see darkness and abyss. So classic options. The dark dark duck. And then you know what? I'm gonna look. I'm sorry, Twitch chat. I'm gonna make an executive decision and say, Summer Court duck. Shout out to Zai Zai. That's definitely an option here. Sorry, Pyre fans, not today. All right, so let's run our poll: Nature, Darkness, Abyss, and Summer Court duck. And then, Jeff, while this poll is running, do you want to give us maybe a quick rundown of your understanding of, like, if I give an affiliation, how that might inform concept, or if it's, you know, kept neutral enough that we can pivot or stuff like that?
That affects a lot of stuff. The shape language and the outfit mostly. Also, like color palette's a big one. You know, if we went Abyss, that's going to look, you know, at least it should look wildly different than if we went Pyre. You know, the purples versus the reds and the oranges and stuff like that. So, I guess it wouldn't change proportions too much. Like the support, the class kind of defines like how, you know, big or, you know, top heavy or aggressive this character is going to be.
Are there any of these that, you know, in your head you had this concept of what this duck might look like as you're live drawing it? Are there any where you're immediately like, please no, don't make me draw an abyss duck? Or do you think they could all kind of work out?
No, we can make any of it work. Abyss
it looks like we went
sounds...
for the. All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I was going to say, it looks like with a 55% vote rate, we did go with the classic nature affiliate duck. So this would be kind of your general, you know, general duck. Nothing too crazy. No abyssal duck, no darkness duck, and sadly for Clairbow, no summer court duck either. Unfortunate. And then as we move on to the next one, so now we start getting into the actual kit. I'm going to make, Tyler, if you don't mind, a, like, there, into the actual kit. And I'll format this afterward as well for all of you following along at home after the fact. But we'll move on to the actual meat and bones, so to speak, gamey meat of the duck kit. We're not, just for clarification, no ducks were harmed in the making of this champion. We're not going to eat the duck. But if we were to start off on a passive, what kind of ideas? And do keep in mind that we don't necessarily need a passive for every champion. Sometimes it's something super minor. Sometimes it just adds a little bit of flavor. You know, Rey jumps higher at base. That's technically kind of a passive since it's unique to her. But yes, toss out some ideas in Twitch chat for potential passive. No passive is also an option. If that's what you want. Damn, but what are you thinking? What do you think would be fun?
I don't know. So, like, the idea of a duck, like, it could have something to do with feathers. It could have something to do with, yeah, I mean, flying makes sense. Like, ducks fly, I think. Pretty sure they do. There's some definitely some interesting concepts that can come from this. It also depends, like, is the character going to be like true duck? Are they going to be like a kind of like a duck humanoid-ish character? Like that also could inform. If we're going like true duck, that definitely changes like some like concept in my mind between like a duck that is just like a duck versus a duck that is like kind of duck. There's some cool stuff. Definitely something water-oriented could also be a really positive option.
Okay, so far we have flying / gliding. We have sliding / wall running. We have double jumps. I see triple jumps. You know what? Let's go wild.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a triple jumping duck.
Yeah, you get like flap. It's like I'm going to say legally distinct terms here. But you get you flap your jumps. You like flap in the air and you get like maybe either like incremental or decremental height increases per jump, but something that it allows you to kind of like maneuver, and maybe you get like maybe you get to float above the air and you get like better line of sight of the battlefield in front of you and are able to better target your allies for support.
So it looks like we have 5 options. I saw egg and I kind of tweaked it a little bit just to be weird. This is not, by the way, an actual good idea. But we have 5 options for our, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 options for our passive. We have flying / gliding duck. We have sliding / wall running duck. I'm thinking like straight up Prince of Persia style, really.
Okay.
We got triple jump with built-in flapping. We have a bubble shield of some sort. And we have drop an egg on death, and then some interaction with the respawn mechanic with the egg. Either the timer is reduced if the egg stays alive, or you revive at the egg, that kind of thing. Now I see you out there, bubble shield gang. So we'll see about that. But let's get a poll up real quick for these options, and then Ben, I'd love to hear more about. So as we talk about these passives, are there any that are immediately like nightmare material, or any that you're like, please choose this because I coded it last week in my free time for fun?
So I think it depends, right? Most of these, I would say, don't immediately jump out to me as something that's a no-go. Certainly we make new stuff for every champ, and even if something's completely new, we're good to do it. But a lot of times for feasibility, one thing we bear in mind is if we have anything, for example, flying duck, because we have Drogos who already flies, I would say, okay, if I were coding that, I would at least have something to go off of. Not that it's necessarily even the same as Drogos, I see gliding here, that might be a new piece, but I would have a starting point that I could look at. I would say the one that sort of jumps out as maybe tough for me is the sliding and wall running, the wall running part specifically. We do have wall interactions already. Koga, for instance, can climb up walls. But wall running is something that's very dependent, not just on programming, but our different level geometry, things like that. There's a lot of corner cases to be aware of. What if you
quite literally
the wall ends? Yes, true, literal corner cases. But yes, obviously for this exercise, not gonna nix anything. And in practice, usually even if things look hard, we investigate first, Looks hard, but if I were the programmer, I would talk to the other programmers. I would try to see if I can get a quick rudimentary version working, or if I'm hitting obvious blockers.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of to your point, you would iterate, If something doesn't work out for a passive, can we have some different version that's maybe an ability, or vice versa? Or if it can't be the whole thing, can we kind of pivot but keep the same flavor, in a way to keep the feeling of the champion or the gameplay of the champion kind of centralized and along the same path, right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
It looks like our vote is coming to a close. It looks like the egg res mechanic is going to win. So, really cool idea, right? But keep in mind that this can take on a variety of forms, so to speak. Most, I'm sure, would be excellent, but it could be revive on it could be revive at a specific location. It could be like I said, like reduced res timer if the egg remains alive for 10 seconds after death, stuff like that. But a lot of these, especially touching revive mechanics in general, are also very scary. Shout out Terminus. The floating is a feature, not a bug. But again, for the sake of this exercise, we're gonna go ahead and we'll do something like, like I said, he drops an egg on death, and that egg will do something, and it's probably going to be on an internal cooldown, or as we start to think about the other abilities that we can include, we want to keep in mind, do we want to do a callback to this passive? Do we want it to inform other abilities? Is his ultimate going to be egg related? Could it, reset the passive timer if he uses his ultimate? That kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as you think about the other things that we could be doing. And then we can move on from there. Already OP, please nerf. We'll move on to our primary fire. Remember, our weapon is Bubbles with a Z. We are looking at, I think Jeff gave me his blessing for the Bubble Wand. So what kind of... Actually, you know what? I think I did kind of talk about what I thought would be cool. That Bubble Wand that shoots out a series of bubbles in a side swipe. Does that sound interesting, or do we want to maybe do another quick poll for just a couple of options? Let's do variations on the wand mechanic real quick. Just small ones. I'll move right on to the alternate fire since we kind of already talked about weapon with the actual weapon thing. So we have Bubble Wand. Do we want a series of projectile bubbles sent out per swipe? Sorry, Miriam. These are terrible poll options. Do we want a Bubble Zuka? Which is, that would kind of be cheating, though, because we chose Bubbles specifically and not Bazooka. I'm sorry, Bubble Zuka again. It's not happening. Charging Bubble. I see a Charging Bubble or a Bubble Minigun. Remember, this is with a wand. So while a minigun is cool... Tambo, sorry, you were going to say something?
Charging Bubble actually makes a lot of sense if you're using like a wand that you're blowing into, because you can blow different sizes of bubbles.
I like that idea a lot. And that actually, is a good one because it also helps complement the rest of the visuals and what we thought about with wand, right? So if we did want a Bubble Bazooka, how can we make a wand into a bazooka? We would either need to pivot, the flavor of the ability or the visuals. So that's keeping in line with the other things. So we have Charging Bubble. We have a series of projectile bubbles. Bubble out of the mouth. Remember, we have kind of that wand. We're trying to keep that wand somehow in use in this kit. We could just have... It's a little bit... I was going to use the word bland, but we could just have a wand that shoots out projectiles similar to a Torvald Gauntlet. Just Bubble Wand. That is an option.
Or Willow's.
Or Willow's wand of over bubble.
Yes. Ooh, I like. I see something in chat that the bubbles that like pop.
Okay.
Like having like a small explosion.
So kind of a flak bubble.
Yeah.
And of course, also, I will, and this is just kind of a total anecdote as we come up with the last option here. I'm still looking at the chat. This is also where you're going to get, like, that's just this champion, but reskinned as a duck. So if we went with flak bubbles, we're going to get Ash Who? Mod check? Right? If we go with charging bubbles, we're going to get, like, Shaolin Who? It's just something to keep in mind. How can we make something interesting and unique enough to the champion that helps to introduce a new gameplay experience?
Mm-hmm.
I see bubble. I see sticky bubbles. I kind of like that. But how would we distinct? Like what makes it? What makes it a sticky bubble? Bubble salvo, bubble flamethrower. Different shaped bubbles. Cool idea, but might be difficult to implement and make not too complicated.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for charging bubble, like, in theory, like, if you're blowing the bubble out of a wand, like, it could change the size of the projectile, because the longer you blow into the bubble, the larger it's gonna get, right? So it changes projectile side, and that can make it, like, a little more distinct from, like, just a normal charge shot that, like, an Amani or a Shaolin would have. But
okay,
also,
I'm feeling these
changing projectile size is intense.
Yes, and potentially, like, Roland in VFX is already like, please don't change the size. Please don't change the size of the VFX. Can we please have the single size bubble? So let's go with these four options. We have kind of a series of projectile bubbles sent out in a swipe, physics Who, and then charging bubble. You can charge it up for different sizes. It does different things, maybe. We have a bubble wand, single projectile. Keep in mind, we can do other things with that. So even if the in-hand is a bubble wand, single projectile bubble thrower. We can still do cool things otherwise, or callbacks. And then we'll also do the flak bubble for kind of bursts in the air. And thank you, Miriam. It is indeed a question of, is this an in-hand or an in-wing? Ponder that for a minute. So right out of the gate, charging bubble projectile takes a lead. So Ben, if I were to say I want a charging bubble projectile, what would be your initial thought? What would be your question?
I think the two things I can think of would be, one, do we want this to be a kind of continuous scaling, or do you want there to be levels of the bubble, right? Like, are there 5 different bubble sizes you can have, or is it, get the percentage 0 to 100 and that's the size of the bubble? I'd also ask if these bubbles are true sphere projectiles, right? I think resizing them is much easier. If we, for whatever reason, decided, no, we want it to be this crazy wavy bubble, right, that might, probably could still resize it, but it would be not as simple as just changing the projectile radius. And then I would think, how does that affect the damage as well, right, beyond the projectile itself? Does it do certain things only at different bubble charges? But yeah, we have charge abilities in the game, so I think it's not there's no real big concerns for feasibility at this stage.
From a design standpoint, I would think that playing around with 0 to 100 would be fun, especially if we are going with like an actual bubble feel, like a giant circle. You see other options with Atlas, for instance, who has different charge levels, 3 different charge levels. Whereas a bubble could be, I'm going to plink little bubbles. I'm going to send out this massive, scary bubble. Avoid the bubble. So I'm down with that, and I'm down for kind of stipulating that it's probably 0 to 100 or whatever values we choose, right? It could start out at 25% bubble size, just at base bubble size. So next up, we have our alternative fire. So keeping in mind we have a passive and we have a primary fire charging bubble, what kind of ideas do we want for our alternative fire? I see alternative fire. You quack menacingly and detonate the bubbles in the air. Now, keeping in mind, generally, for support champions, we do have abilities to protect themselves, and we do have the ability to oftentimes have some utility. But typically your alt fire for a support champion would be the supportive ability. So let's keep this in mind as we throw out ideas for the alt fire. How can we heal? Well, not necessarily heal, right? Because support is more than just healing. It can be more than just healing. Although it's very difficult to make a true, like a buff debuff support that doesn't heal at all in a game like Paladins. But how can we support with our alt fire with our Duckman? So I see skill shot healing ability. And that could be a bunch of different things, right? I see toss out eggs. So multiple themes going on here. We got some bubbles, we got some flying, we got some egg themes. Healing eggs. Make sure the team does not become scrambled. I'm so funny. Let's see. Quack, area heal. So I like the general idea of that, right? Similar to Khan's shout, you'll get that a lot, right? You quack, it maybe debuffs or slows enemies in the area and heals your allies. You could do some combination that's also kind of similar to Grover, right? You could have a passive ability if this were like a duck bard, if we were singing songs in bubbles, stuff like that. We could do a bubble shield. I think I am going to veto that one specifically because you're immediately going to get Torvald vibes, right?
Yes.
Bubble shield, placing a shield on somebody. It's literally, people call it bubble shield. I like the idea of, complex things that are easily kind of interacted with at whatever level. So stuff like switching between damage and healing can be cool, but for the sake of this and for the sake of kind of general complexity, we do want to keep it within a general ease of access, especially for support champions. Let's see. So I see kind of just a lot of bubble heals. So Tambo, what are you thinking? So if we wanted to do a bubble heal, do we want detonating healing bubbles? Do we want a stream of healing, like a flamethrower that heals with bubbles? Like what are you feeling right now?
I mean, if we wanted it to be in like the skill shot range, you could have it be like you blow a bubble that like travels to an ally location, or maybe like when it like hits a wall, it pops and hits healing in an area. If you wanted it to be more like streamlined, pardon the pun, then you could. I think the idea of like kind of like a wave of bubbles would feel really clean.
Okay.
Kind of like a stream, some kind of either like you said stream of bubbles or having it be like a different like a kind of like what we were talking with the charging bubble, like having it be like a bubble that like goes to an area. Maybe you can refire it to pop it. Maybe a la Pip's healing potion, but in like a different, less like an arc, like Pip throws it or shoots it, and more like a slow projectile, maybe like fire spit.
All right, cool. So let's do a poll with skill shot heal. That is blowing a bubble or a small number of bubbles that travel to a location and pop on hitting a wall. Sorry, Miriam. You just do skill shot heal. We'll do healing eggs, tossing out deployables that your ally can then it either hits them directly to heal them or they can run over them. They have some duration that they can last there before they disappear. A quack area heal. A bubble heal that is a stream of bubbles or a flamethrower of life. And let's do like a bubble burst, as we mentioned, with the ability to refire. And I'm thinking for that one, almost like not quite a shotgun, but maybe a conical burst of bubbles outwards. Let's do that. And of course, all the voice lines for this champion are just going to be variations of quacking. There's no actual English involved.
Ooh, it's like the Camazot skin in Smite. That's just
like exactly like the Camazot skin in Smite.
Yes. Okay, I'm down.
I would request we have one line that's "Sorry to burst your bubble."
Oh my!
Oh, that's pulling me. Okay, that's pulling me back to the English. I was gonna say this is the easiest voice pack I've ever written, but now I don't know.
That's going to be the line that gets spammed in playtests, by the way.
Sorry to burst your bubble. Sorry to burst your bubble.
That is actually
sorry to.
I'll have you know.
I can see the muting people now.
Yeah, we're already. Shout out to Jabril. Muted already. Load into the game. He's playing Duck Champ. Already muted. AoE. So in a surprising turn of events, I did not actually see this one coming. We actually did go with the AoE quack heal.
Okay.
All right, so we have a charging bubble projectile in hand, an AoE quack heal, and so in my head, when I start thinking about stuff like this, I think, how do we balance complexity with fun? And I'm thinking, so can we send out a bubble projectile and then interact with the bubble projectile with the AoE quack heal? Is that a second ability? Is it how do we implement like a low to the ground? This still feels good to use heal or support ability while still providing complexity that players can interact with or can engage with as they hit the higher levels of Duck Champ play, that kind of thing. So just something to keep in mind. As we move on to the first ability. So typically, again, on average, this can be whatever we want because this is your champion, but typically we have an ability that either provides some significant utility or movement. Or we can separate those out and have one, quote unquote utility ability and one quote unquote movement ability. So for ability 1, let's try to keep it focused on a singular use, whatever use you have in your head, but a singular use. So what could an ability be for the Duck Champ? I see a wing slap. Can he flap? Wing slap, potentially with a stun. We have an egg shell, so that would be more of a defensive. Wing slap. I'm actually going to take out slap and make it cease crowd control. For those following at home who may not be familiar with the term, crowd control is ways to control or affect the ability of your enemies to do things. That could be a slow, that could be a stun, anything like that. Bubble shield. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to make that an alternative for the eggshell because those both feel fairly defensive to me. We could throw soapy water onto enemies to blind them or otherwise impair their movement and or vision. I see potentially some kind of disengage. We could have a waddle. And so that's interesting. So, if you wanted the duck to waddle, how would you do that? Could it be you lose the ability to jump and you restrict your movement speed by 50%, but you're singing a duck song, like you're just quacking every 1 second and healing your allies around you, so you could do your little duck waddle while you're healing? That could be kind of fun, right? I'm gonna toss a waddle in there, and this could be and keep in mind a waddle is just an expression of potential mechanics, right? So it could be any number of things. It could be a really fast waddle, a la, Moji's dash. It could be a very slow waddle, like I said, where there's some effect that's happening around you. It could be a toggleable state. Any number of things requiring iteration and programming not yelling at me. Wing flap knockback.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see splashing. Like splashing in water of some kind. I don't know how we would actually translate that into an ability, but the idea
it's magic,
of
it's magic water.
Yeah, an animation of splashing, would feel very evocative for a duck, I think.
I think we can toss that into soapy water.
Cool.
And then let's get one more ability. Ben, do you see anything that's interesting in chat you think you want to pull? If not, no problem.
I actually did not have chat pulled up. I'm looking at it now, though. I do see just sticking out to me because the things we don't have is some sort of slippery floor. I don't know. Maybe there's some overlap, but right as programmer, I would say, this would be potentially a new effect, which is obviously more overhead. But,
okay.
Something.
So I'm imagining
slide around.
I'm almost imagining when you say that, like those ice puzzles, where once you step onto the ice, you keep going until you hit something, which I guess is also similar if you are also a Smite player. Scotty's ice pool does similarly, where if you step onto it, you'll keep going until you step off the ice. So we could actually do something like that potentially. Keep moving until you leave the area. Those are 5 options. We'll get a pull up shortly for Mr. Duckman's ability 1. We have a wing gust of some sort that provides some kind of crowd control. We have a more defensive oriented eggshell / bubble shield / water shield, something like that. We have soapy water, potentially impairing movement or vision, comboed with splashing water to impair or deal damage. We have a waddle. Heal allies while waddling. I think Thomas is out there just having the time of his life, hearing his name every Hi-Rez or Evil Mojo waddle. Hearing his name every 3 seconds. And then we have our slippery duck floor. Keeping in mind, this is, kind of fun to think about how also the nature of the game you're designing for informs what kind of thing you're interested in doing. So Paladins is a different game. Paladins is a hero shooter. Smite is a MOBA. Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck builder. And trying to remember that there are different ways that different players interact with different material is one of the challenges and one of the cool things about designing for any given game. So it looks like Slippery Duck Floor did, I'm so sorry, Quacky, no Waddle to heal. Slippery Duck Floor takes the cake. And that's so I hear that, and my first thought is, okay, so we have some, this is mostly utility, I would imagine. You could, at the risk of over bloating a specific ability, you could add a healing mechanic to allies who are on the Slippery Duck Floor. You could add different or multiple types of CC crowd control to the duck floor. So we want to be a little bit wary of that. But my first thought when I hear this is we want to essentially disorient any enemies who are going to be stuck on this duck floor. And then, Jeff, how would you say that we are doing so far from your end?
This is all terrific. Thank you. Oh, I was going to mention
how many.
No, I got one. So when the duck changed a little bit, one of the abilities was the quack to heal. For me, in Concept Brain, the quack became very important, and so I reworked the design to emphasize more of like the lungs and the beak, so that like whatever the biggest thing on a character is usually what your eye settles on first. And so that's like your brain's going to say, oh, like he makes noise or something. If I did my job right, you should be able to tell what he does just by looking at him.
Which is actually something that's way more important than people give it credit for. You know, if something looks a lot of okay, so I'm going to go off a slight tangent really briefly. For me, I have a huge stock in player expectation. What is the expectation on seeing something or on first time playing something? Do I see this giant gun and expect like a small plinking audio, or do I expect rapid fire small little bullets coming out from the massive cannon? And then what's kind of interesting is that if everything goes correctly, to Jeff's point, then you don't even, or one often doesn't even think about it. It's like, of course, the quack to heal has an emphasis on bill size, you know, of course. Why wouldn't it be? You couldn't quack to heal without a mouth, right? But if it's not there, or if something's wrong, then that's very, very noticeable very quickly. It's kind of interesting. So let's move on to our ability 2. So speaking from, we have kind of a utility Slippery Duck Floor. So now I'm kind of looking for maybe something a little bit either more defensive or a little bit more movement, or some way to complement the kit that we have already. So I see create a bubble to fly away. I see a bread attack. Now, this would be a rather offensive set of abilities. If we had both a bread attack and a Slippery Duck Floor, you could in fact create a Slippery Duck Floor with some sudsy bubble water, toss the bread onto the sudsy bubble water, it becomes wet and moldy and therefore poisons enemies. Of course, then you start getting into, is this a little bit too complex? Tambo's over here, please, for the love of God, stop saying these stupid ideas.
No. So the idea is like, the ideas aren't stupid. It's just like my brain immediately when you say something is like, how does this work? How do we test this? Because the idea of the Slippery Duck Floor is already complex, and my brain is already like moving at 10 miles an hour, like 100 miles an hour, trying to figure out what are the edge cases that could happen with a slippery floor, just a completely brand new mechanic in our game. And so adding more to that just adds more and more edge cases to the idea of this new concept, and then iterating on this new concept. It's not that I dislike the idea. It's just like, oh wow, I like there could be more things that interact with this thing that I'm already like my mind's already racing about.
And as soon as you add more and more interactions, it becomes more complex both to test and to understand as a player. You know, we want to add a level of complexity that's fun but not overwhelming. You know, like once you get 3 stacks of this ability, you should wait until you get, you know, at least between 4 and 5 to use this other ability that procs this other thing that lets you use the first ability again. Like that kind of thing can be really fun for the people who really want to engage, but oftentimes it's just really too complex too quickly. I see Quacky the mod spamming in my Twitch chat. Quacky, how foul of you. Bubble explodes and makes you click incorrectly, a confusion effect. So I'm going to go ahead and do confusing bubble. Throw you one piece of bread, Quacky. All right. One piece of bread. All right, let's run a poll for a defensive escape bubble, a bread attack, baby ducks, a small leap that interacts with the slippery duck floor, and a bubble of confusion, which is really just describing most of me every day, really. But I'm thinking, you know, and any of these can potentially interact with other abilities. For the baby ducks thing, it's a little bit scary because do we need AI for the baby ducks? Are they just meshes that walk forward? Do they stay on the ground if you use it in the air? Can you use it in the air? But we'll leave it on there anyway. Mr. Duckman ability number 2. Absolutely, Ben.
My only comment is with the bread attack, you would probably have to make sure it didn't get stale after a while.
Mm-hmm. And now, so that's a mechanic I didn't even think about, and which is probably not super intuitive and probably not fun to play. But what if you needed to use an ability every 30, like a specific ability every 30 seconds, or it loses some effectiveness? So it almost forces you to be like, take my bread. It's freshly baked, or it becomes stale and becomes less useful. Say again?
Was needed intentional there?
No, but that's fantastic. Yeah. Needed with a K. Kneaded. And then you could even do, I was going to make another bread pun. I was going to say something like, if you don't use the ability, you know, your team fight will go awry, right? You know, a little bit of bread. But that was kind of half-baked anyway. All right, so it looks like the upper crust of puns. I can do this all day. All right, Yeast, you get too tired of me. Let's move on to, it looks like our bubble escape won with a 58% vote. So we are creating a bubble to escape. And so I hear that, and I think there are multiple things that we can do with that immediately from a design perspective. This is something that is mobile. Do we want players to be able to like travel wherever they want, like a Drogo Salt? You can go wherever. Do you spawn a bubble and then you're immune in the bubble, but you can't really control where it goes until it hits it? Do you want to be able to refire it to get out of the bubble? Is this a movement speed increase? You know, is there damage reduction that's associated with this? And all of that is something that we iterate on in playtest. But I guess the gist of it is we have a slippery duck floor and creating a bubble to get away. Now, for the big bread item, the ultimate. There are some things that we stray away from, although, like I said, we'll suspend the disbelief. We'll suspend production concerns for the sake of this. But typically, we stay away from taking control of other champions. We stay away from literally stealing abilities from other champions. We stay away from touching too much about revive mechanics. But go crazy, go wild. You know, let's get quacking. What ability do we want for ultimate? Okay, I see Ultra Honk. I kind of like that idea.
It plays into the idea of the bill being important too.
That's very true, and that's a really good point. If we have something that we've identified as thematic or important to the gameplay or the character already, we can do callbacks. We can have things associated with that. So yeah, massive honk, bubble tornado I saw, which was kind of interesting. Spawn kind of an independent thing. Now remember, a lot of the times we do have damaging abilities, damaging ultimates on support, but that's not necessarily necessity, right? So we could have a bubble tornado that sends out healing bubbles, or a giant AoE of, you know, stand in this and it hurts enemies and heals allies, that kind of thing. It kind of sucks them in Sarah's style. Who knows? Let's see. Swarm of... So I addressed kind of the swarm of ducks. We're spawning multiple things in the baby ducks thing. I'm going to avoid that today. That one's kind of interesting. So like fly and AoE heal, I think could be interesting. So kind of like a Grover Willow ult combo where you're flying and sending out massive quacks that heal allies around you. Unfortunately, we can't release the Quacken. That's already a thing. I see a reverse, like a disorient, which could be interesting. That would be more a CC specific or CC focused ultimate. I will toss. I will go ahead and toss Swarm of Ducks just because I see it from so many different people. So my first thought there is it's not actually individual ducks so much as an area that is essentially has a VFX treatment that says the ducks are happening here, and then there are things that happen within that. And let's get one more.
It'll be a lot easier to test too, because from a QA perspective, we're not like asking multiple more things of collision to interact.
Right. Can you get hit by individual ducks?
God, or like, like what happens if you get like stuck in a duck model or the ducks don't like disappear properly? Like, can the ducks push you through the floor? Like stuff like that. Just like all these different things that spawning other.
What if you get stunned while getting hit by a duck? It's just ugh.
Right.
Let's see. I also see another bubble shield that heals. That would play. We don't have a bubble shield yet. But I think we're slowing down a little bit on the ideas. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up bubble shield. Now this would be, because this is an ultimate level ability, we would probably either do like a team-wide bubble shield or potentially something that applies, on an interval, bubble shields to allies, that kind of thing. So let's run a poll here for the ultimate. So massive honk of pain and healing, bubble tornado, flying heal, swarm of ducks, and bubble shield. Now so as we run, I'm gonna keep the limelight just for a second. As we run this poll, I'm thinking there are a couple things here that you could combine probably for something that's really, really interesting. So my first thought is combining fly and heal, or flying in general, with something else. So am I flying? Do I become the personification of a ducknado? Can I fly and send out different things? Or am I honking on an interval as I'm flying? Or am I like creating mini ducknados as I fly, and they kind of go off on random patterns kind of thing? There's a lot that we could do here. A lot of it requires, like I said before, iteration, testing. Does this feel good? If I use this, does it feel like an ultimate? Is it frustrating for players to play against? That kind of thing. Ben, do you have like a yes, please of these?
Honestly, I think a lot of these sound like pretty good options to me. Swarm of Ducks would be.
Mad lads.
Oh, is that what won? Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say,
ducks.
as Kevin mentioned and Tambo mentioned, depending on how we want this to actually work, right? Given enough time, right, we can do anything on programming, but some things will be more complex. Something, right? Swarm of Ducks in particular, right, can be more client server expensive if they are individual ducks doing their individual things.
So, from a production standpoint, my first thought is this one is the scariest already, depending on how we do it. Yeah. Are we spawning individual ducks? What effects are we applying per duck? Do they have collision? Can the ducks be killed before they hit you? Is it an area that we're applying this in? How is it going to clip through walls? If I use it in the air, is it going to go all the way? All that stuff. But it could also be potentially cool. So in our heads, we would go through multiple ways we could do this and all that good stuff, and kind of pick one that we feel is probably thematically appropriate and not a nightmare for both QA and programming, and something that wouldn't make Jeff hate me from the art side, and all that good stuff. And then unfortunately, I think we are running out of time to do talents, but feel free to shoot me either on Discord or Twitter or anything like that, ideas for another few days. Because I think as we wind up, Jeff, how are we looking as far as, do you have something that we might be able to show off, or?
Oh, it's glorious.
Is it glorious?
I don't know.
We could almost have you send that over to Tyler, who might be able to put it up on screen. If not, no problem. But as we do that, I will give you the rundown. We'll do the sign off and everything. But I will take the opportunity to take each of these things that we've talked about here. I'll add some temp design numbers, almost like a first pass design kit pitch based on what you have here. So I'll toss maybe some refire rate, maybe some basic damage. Maybe I'll toss a couple interactions on there. And then pretty it up a little bit. We'll get Jeff's concept on the page, and I will make sure that, I don't know if it's going to be the game account or not, but I'll make sure to get the link out to everyone who's interested in seeing this champion and having the actual document. And know and be proud that you, Twitch chat, have created the next Paladins champion. Although the disclaimer is we are not actually making Duck Champ. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, haha. But not actually a champion. Still very cool. I'll go through kind of each of the other devs here and see if they have any like farewell words, as we're seeing if Jeff can get this concept over to Tyler, and then we'll sign off. But stay tuned for more, both today and for more with the Duck Champ. So Ben, do you have any final words, sign-offs, things you particularly like or don't like?
I guess it was great being on stream today. Thank you all. I am truly impressed with this Duck Champ. As Kevin said, even though we are not really making it, it is a very cool champ, and I would enjoy working on it if we were. So thank you for your creation.
Tambo, how about you? Anything particularly glorious?
Yeah, I mean, Twitch chat, you have designed what would be one of the hardest champions, I think, for QA to test. So congrats. We both have a revive mechanic and a new mechanic in the slippery floor, and the potential of spawning other things with the swarm of ducks. So congrats. This is terrifying, and also extremely fun. We would be sitting down, QA would be sitting down for a number of hours to brainstorm edge cases for all of these things, and that kind of stuff is super fun. And also, like, the idea behind like QA sitting in these is so that we get to be like, we're not here to like necessarily tell people no. We're here to like be like, hey, this is why this is scary, and like we can have that discussion afterwards. I love the concept of this. This character is going to be would be so much fun to play. Like
Very
the
fun.
idea of this character is just super cool, and just like breaks so many boundaries or like what we currently have in the game, that it's just so innovative. So y'all did a really killer job.
And I think I actually have the image. Let me see if I can get this over to you, Tyler, and we can show it on stream.
It's on there right now, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Look at that. That is your Duck Champ. Is he not glorious?
I love this.
That was a lot of fun.
Not glorious. Absolutely fantastic. Like I said before, we are going to toss this art on the dock as well. But Jeff, do you have any like final words, any last considerations, anything like that?
This was awesome. Thank everyone for participating, and yeah, this is the stuff I live for. So this is great. Thank you.
I, for one, absolutely love, I like truly love spending an hour and a half and seeing an actual literal concept be made based on like what we're talking about, and seeing your work, Jeff. So it's so cool. But we are just about out of time. Thank you all, my fellow panelists, for joining me. I love working with you guys. Thank you, Twitch chat, for your amazing ideas and the less amazing ones. I still love them. And your time. And stay tuned, like I said before, for the link to the doc that has all the info. I'll spruce it up a little bit. But I hope you enjoy the rest of Hi-Rez Showcase. Thank you for spending your time with us, and we will see you all very shortly.